What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're gonna love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
Welcome back to Top Bins, the show, bringing you all the action from England and Italy, the Premier League and Serie A. But not this week and not for the next few weeks because we're in hashtag World Cup mode. We have our first ever Winter World Cup, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
Many would say for worse. Breaking up our domestic seasons, we're going to be previewing the World Cup for you tonight in typical Top Bins fashion. We're not going to be doing the game-by-game, team-by-team breakdown because, frankly, I think everyone does those, and I don't know how helpful they actually are because if we're just being realistic, there are about 10 teams that matter in the World Cup, and I think generally speaking, people just want to hear about the teams that could win, the players to look out for, the narratives that will, become a part of, like, the story of this World Cup, and there are plenty of all of those things. I'm your host, Matt, joined by my co-host, Dom. Dom, how are you tonight on World Cup Eve?
It's close, man. It's close. I'm good. Excited to talk about the World Cup. Finally getting in that World Cup mood. I'm really trying not to mention FIFA on here because that's what's really helped me get in the World Cup mood. They brought out a lot of content, so I needed something to really get me out of watching just Milan, and they've been struggling recently. So this will be refreshing. Just aside from when the U.S. is playing, get to watch a lot of just some of the best soccer every 4 years.
Let's not sleep on the old USA. Let's
oh no, you are. I'm not sleeping. It's coming home.
Yeah. It's hard to have a conversation about the World Cup, and this is the only time I think we're going to talk about this too much because we all know that this World Cup being held in Qatar is not good. We know that LGBTQ plus people do not have rights in Qatar. Women do not have the same rights. There's lack of equality there. These things are all bad. We all know, obviously, too, about the incidents leading up to the World Cup and its construction in the stadiums. A lot of migrant workers dying because of unsafe work environments. Obviously, we want to bring attention to that and understand that by talking about the World Cup, we're not diminishing those issues. We don't want to make it seem like those things don't matter to us because they do. But at the same time, I think you have to think about, like, keep those things in mind, obviously, but that there are still, like, broader events happening too that do also matter. I always think of the 1936 Olympics in Berlin, obviously happening during a time of, like, great authoritarian rule. But if media members, if people weren't talking about that, those Olympics, the Jesse Owens story does not get magnified in the same way, right? Because there's not those neutral observers, those people to shed light on those issues. There's no perfect answer to any of this. It just is what it is. And I know that's not a suitable answer, but there's no changing, that this was awarded to Qatar in an obviously illegal way because everyone involved in that decision has been prosecuted to this point. And we know that they obviously have human rights abuses, right, that are still going on today. And that's obviously shameful. It's shameful that it's being played in Qatar. But I think, I would be remiss if we didn't mention that at the top, that is obviously the background of this, and we'll hear more about this throughout the World Cup, unfortunately, because it's stupid that it's being held there. It's dumb, too, that it's being held at the time of year that it is. But that is the circumstance, that is the environment that this is all happening in, and it is just unavoidable, outside of that.
It's going to be interesting. The World Cup's not supposed to be at this time. It's just weird. There's a lot going on now, though.
I found it very.
I think
yeah. Because I'm so used to in the summer. Typically, most people have a lot more free time. Whereas this is for most people, at least in America, this is like some of the busiest times of year. Like for me, I'm in school, so like my semester is ending. lot of like final projects being done, and then it's the holidays. It's the the busiest travel time of year, right? Like you have Thanksgiving, Christmas, all that sort of happening, all in the midst of this. It's where a lot of people are usually home a bit more. You want to see like friends, family, things like that. So it's a hectic time. I am looking forward to though having the World Cup on for Thanksgiving, not just like the NFL, not just like American football, but like global football on Thanksgiving. I think is actually kind of cool.
That's gonna be awesome.
Outside of that, yeah, it's it is bizarre to have it this time of year. I was thinking about that actually on my drive home, because normally it'd be like you'd be in a jersey and shorts, and it's like I thankfully just have this USA sweater. That is going to be my fill-in for a lot of these games.
That's funny.
Let's start off at the top. It's just some general discussion about the hardest groups, right? Because every year in every tournament, if it's Champions League, if it's the Euros, CONMEBOL, whatever it is, there's always a group of death, so to speak. There are two groups that really stand out. I think that you'll hear about it. Maybe you're not as familiar with the World Cup and things like that, and maybe you'll hear these terms. Group of death is just, again, a group that has a lot of very strong teams. And then this is kind of a tradition in pretty much every, especially international tournament. There's always a group that is considered this. There are two groups that stick out to me. Group G with Brazil, Serbia, Switzerland, and Cameroon. And then Group H with Portugal, Ghana, Uruguay, and South Korea. I'm sure you agree that those are too hard.
Yeah. When I looked at it, Group H stood out to me right away. I mean, you've got Portugal, which goes without saying. Uruguay is like a really like dark horse team this year. Darwin Nunez will most likely pop off in the World Cup, and South Korea is a big sleeper team. I think they have some really, really good players on that team, and Ghana is I have some doubts about them, but I don't think that they're like a weak team per se. You know what I mean? They have a lot of quality players. There's a couple players. I was looking at the lineup, I think like 2 days ago. Or was it announced yesterday? I think it was announced yesterday. There's two players in that team. I just don't understand why they've been chosen. But aside from that, yeah, all four of those teams, I think that's the strongest group out of this entire table.
Yeah, those are, again, we've always had these groups, and it can throw you a surprise or two as a result, because there's just so many teams that are on equal footing. Group G with Brazil, Serbia, Switzerland, and Cameroon is the sixth hardest group ever by ELO rating, right? Which is it's always hard to tell, right? Like some people don't like those things, right? Like sort of breaking teams down into numbers by strength and things like that, but I think it fits with kind of our perception of it too. That is a very challenging group. Brazil, pretty much going into any World Cup, are going to be a favorite. Switzerland have had a fantastic record in international tournaments, getting out of their groups, making into the later stages of tournaments. Haven't been able to get to a semifinal, but they upset France at the last Euro. Right, like this is a team that has done a lot of damage. Serbia are certainly having like a really good like cycle. They have a lot of really talented players this go around. And Cameroon are one of the strongest African teams too. I mean, it's really them and Senegal, you would say, that have the most ability. Now Senegal, obviously, Sadio Mane has been ruled out officially he's still with the team, but he's not going to be playing. So that obviously takes them down a notch. But Cameroon and Senegal are two of the best African teams, and Cameroon have done really, really well historically, at least in some international tournaments. So it's a lot to chew on. And then, yeah, like you said, with Group H, there's no like dominant team here, but I think there are teams that can certainly spring a surprise or two and have that talent, which can make it very challenging. Broadly speaking, and every World Cup has this, but I would say this one is more in like pressing because of their ages now. Messi, Ronaldo. This is most likely both of their like last World Cup. Messi, I think, has been a little more clear on the fact that he does not expect to be back for another one. Ronaldo, who knows? Because he dropped a spicy interview upon like before joining up with Portugal, which seems like a mistake in my eyes. But yeah, what's at stake for these guys, right? Because they obviously have everything really, and they've won everything there is to win except for a World Cup. Both of them have won their continental competitions. Ronaldo winning the Euros, and Argentina with Messi won CONMEBOL. So like, what is it? What is there left? It is the World Cup, but even without that, they have these like complete just kind of resumes that are kind of untouchable.
Yeah, but the people who argue or who use resumes to argue, who's better in this endless debate that I don't think we'll ever have a true answer for. But, this is the final, thing. This is the last chance for both of them to, get that and cement their legacy as like one of the best ever, aside from just their country, but, in the history of the sport. So, for both of them, there is a lot at stake with that. And I think Messi's story is just really cool. I think, what is it, his 1,000? If they get to the final, he'll play in his 1,000th like game for Argentina or something like that.
Not 7,000th.
Or no, it's one. Did I say
he's at
10,
like
000?
160, like 3 for Argentina.
No, I could have sworn I read something that it was like he'll get to this. Like if they played to the final, it was like a round number. That's why it was like a whole number. But I don't think it was 1,000.
It would be maybe 170. I mean, he's on like 162 or 163. He is not on 1,000 games.
I could be wrong.
That's insane.
Yeah, fact check me.
Because I know Ronaldo has more games played than him, and I know definitively Ronaldo has 191.
Dude, I gotta find this now. Now I'm obsessed.
You find that. While you're finding that, Dom, I want to thank some sponsors before we get into the rest of the show. We've got some great sponsors that we love and appreciate so much. This episode of Top Ins is brought to you by Beno Board. You've heard of them. If you've listened to the show, you've heard of Beno Board. You already know the deal. But for the next big tabletop game for your man cave / she shed, tailgates, or your World Cup watch parties, because that is coming up. Of course, it's a great game to throw on your tabletop and play with your friends, right? Like it's very casual, but can also get very competitive. Nice thing for maybe halftime. I know we talk about in every sport pretty much. I hate the halftime show, the World Cup included. So why not play with some Beno boards? The game and lifestyle brand based in Phoenix, Arizona, and their goal is to provide the highest quality boards in a true brand experience. Every part of their boards have been tested time and time again for the best possible playability, so that every Flicker's experience is a positive one. You can bring the world together with Beno and hear someone's story from the other side of the pitch. Our listeners can use code BENOUSP, BINHOUSP, for 10% off any order at BenoBoard.com, including the new World Cup collection boards, the officially licensed Arsenal and Liverpool boards, which look very clean, by the way, as well as board accessories and apparel. That is code BENOUSP for 10% off your order at BenoBoard.com. With the World Cup on the horizon, there's no better way to host your watch parties than with games of Beno at the ready. We also got to thank PHI Apparel Company, Underground Sports Philadelphia, PHI Apparel Company. Come on. It was the collab that was meant to be. PHI Apparel Company provides unique designs and high-quality clothing for the great fans of Philly. With original designs for all, there's no doubt you'll stand out in the crowd. Listeners can use the promo code UNDERGROUND for 10% off any apparel when you shop online at phiapparel.co. That is phiapparel.co. Dom, did you find your number?
No, I'm giving up. I've given up. I just want to move on.
You succumbed to fake news somewhere.
I just want to move on.
And move on, we shall. Players that are out to prove a point. So, touch slightly on Messi and Ronaldo already, but there are a few other players that have that, maybe not that lifelong legacy on the line, but I think certainly have a point to prove to themselves or to their country, fans, whatever. Robert Lewandowski for Poland, right? He moves to Barcelona this past summer with the very naked goal, and I don't blame him, of winning a Ballon d'Or. Felt like he couldn't do that at Bayern, and that Barcelona was the place to raise his profile to do that. Getting far in a World Cup with Poland, international success can be very important, to winning an award like that. And if you can do it with Poland, maybe, yeah. Neymar has carried the burden of Brazil for the last 2 World Cup cycles and is playing very well so far this season. Really, all of the triumvirate at PSG, Neymar, Mbappe, and Messi have been in really good form to start the year. He's obviously, again, Brazil, this is their longest drought between going through World Cups and winning them. So obviously a lot on his shoulders. Kevin De Bruyne, I don't know that he quite has maybe the pressure, but I do think De Bruyne has really like come on to like a new level in the last 2 seasons. And I think he could really cement himself as one of the true like all-time midfielders if he's able to win a World Cup with Belgium. And he would be the guy now, right? Like a lot of these stars in the Belgian team have sort of faded a little bit in the last few years, especially since the last World Cup. He has only improved, I think, since 2018, if you can believe it. So I think he has a lot to prove. And a guy that,
dude, why'd you put this in
maybe doesn't
here?
fit talent-wise with these people, but if we're talking about points to prove, Harry Maguire has a point to prove. People, I think, questioning why he was selected with the England squad. He's obviously taken a lot of abuse over the last few seasons. Listen, largely speaking, he's played pretty good for England. At the previous World Cup was really his breakout performance for a lot of people. I think that was really when large groups of like watchers kind of came on to the idea of Harry Maguire and sort of became familiar with him as a player. And that following season for Leicester was another strong season for him. So out of this list, who do you think really does have forget Messi, forget Ronaldo, just out of Lewandowski, Neymar, De Bruyne, and Harry Maguire, who for you is the most to prove here?
It's tough because I'm stuck between two choices. I'm stuck between Neymar and I'm stuck between Kevin De Bruyne. Mainly, one is carrying the burden of an entire country because they believe in just you for quite some time. And I'm talking about Neymar, obviously. Like Kevin De Bruyne has carried alongside like his teammates in Belgium this burden. It's been this I don't know, golden age that they've had, and the best they've had is third place. So it seems like for a few of the players in that lineup, it's like the last World Cup for them, or of this era before because Roberto Martinez obviously doesn't enjoy bringing youth into the squad. He kind of sticks with his tried and true, So I feel like De Bruyne has a lot to prove with his teammates along with his country. I think that's a whole different thing than like what Neymar's had to deal with, where he's been compared with the greats for his country. But one thing a lot of those greats have is a World Cup trophy, and what will that do to his legacy as a Brazilian player? Because before he ever got to top flight European football, he's playing for Santos, but he's on the biggest stage for his country in Brazil, and to finally bring home a World Cup trophy to his country and be considered one of the best, can sit at that table, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's hard to pick out from there. Yeah, I think Lewandowski on a personal level, I think has put a lot of stock in getting to like that Ballon d'Or level, and I think this is like really kind of his last opportunity because who knows what he'll be like for the next World Cup, and Euros obviously too can be important, but I think this is really his opportunity here to make something of this. And I think Belgium, are such a hard team for me to place because they're one of the oldest teams at the tournament. You look at some of the stars of that team, the spine of it, and you could say that some of them, still relying on like Vertonghen and Alderweireld, and that could maybe be not great, but you still have players like De Bruyne. If Lukaku comes back healthy, right? Like you have options here that I think can be really, really fascinating. And, I think, again, De Bruyne has that, he has that mercurial thing about him that players rarely have, which is he really can take over games. It's not often you see a midfielder do that. So often it is an attacker, it is a winger, striker, whatever it is. It is rare for a midfielder to be kind of the guy that can really propel a team forward. He can do that for Belgium. I firmly believe that. But Harry Maguire, I think, can have some redemption, though. I mean, if England win a World Cup, Harry Maguire's got a lot of, he's got a lot in the bag for that. I don't know. The favorites going into the tournament, these are by odds. And odds typically do reflect like public sentiment in some way. Brazil are the favorite. I think that's generally how most people view this tournament going into it, that Brazil are the favorite. You can pick them up for plus 400 if you are so inclined. Argentina at plus 500, France at plus 700, Spain at plus 850, and England at plus 850. Those are your top 5 favorites. The top 3, I would say, no real surprise. Spain being 4th favorite, maybe a little surprising, but then you remember they played really well in the Euros, lost narrowly to Italy for a spot in the final. got to the Nations League final. So Spain had performed really well, and they have, probably one of the best managers, if not the best manager, at the tournament, right, in Lucho. So, they have a good team. It's on the younger side. Doesn't have maybe the established names we typically associate with like a strong Spanish team, but can't count out the fact that they score just an absolute metric ton of goals, and that can get you places in a knockout tournament.
I like those odds. Argentina is such a safe bet, man. Argentina is such a safe bet.
That's maybe what worries me. France is, listen, and this is more geared to maybe our newer listeners, right, that maybe are just gotten into the sport in the last few years. France has this beautiful thing where every other World Cup cycle, they absolutely melt down. And there's
it's going to be wonderful.
There's some kind of mutiny within the squad. No one really knows why. I don't know. It's really not every other. It hasn't happened in a while because, people I think were predicting it for 2018 and it never appeared. Obviously, they're coming in as the defending World Cup champions. However, the last 16 years, which is really on the last 4 World Cups, but the defending champion has not made it out of the group. France comes in, they're missing Paul Pogba and N'Golo Kante, like 2 very important midfielders from that 2018 run. They, I don't want to say blew up at the Euros, but they certainly fell out in dramatic fashion, giving up a late lead to Switzerland and then losing on penalties. And there was some drama afterwards with Adrien Rabiot's mother and Kylian Mbappe's family. And, Kylian Mbappe has image rights issues. And I don't know. There's
a lot going on, man.
I would be staying away from France personally. England, being 5th favorite, I think is fair and reasonable too when you consider they've, obviously we're in the World Cup semifinals in 2018. We're in the Euro final in 2020/2021. They're obviously an established international team now. I think those are fair favorites. Brazil, I have a hard time with Brazil. We'll get to them later in the show in just a gut feeling I have. But Argentina, like you said, there's no such thing as a safe bet in these tournaments, but Argentina do feel like a strong favorite. It's maybe not their best team ever, but they feel complete in many ways. It feels like, if you're doing like a vibe check of all the teams at the World Cup, they feel like they're at their best. They're obviously, again, coming off winning Copa America. Like, there's a lot to like, I think, about this Argentina team. There's plenty of narrative there too. We're gonna each go through and pick some teams though. Corresponding with some categories. We're gonna start with a surprise team to get out of their group. Dom, I'm gonna let you go first with your surprise team to make it out of the group stage.
So in Group H, I think that most people would say that Portugal and Uruguay are like the favorites to get out of that group. I mean, it's obviously a group of death. There's a lot at stake, but those are obviously the 2 teams that everybody would look at and say, okay, these are the guys that are going to move on. I think that South Korea could surprisingly get out of this group, and mainly because it's more than just Son for this team. They have a great young center back in Kim Min-jae. Napoli has been playing. He's been playing great for Napoli. They're obviously league leaders of Serie A. They haven't relinquished that position for quite some time. They've got talent that hasn't even made the lineup yet. That should be in the lineup, like Kim. What's his name? Lee Kang-in, who plays for Valencia. He's 21, hasn't gotten a lot of chances, but he's at Mallorca now, and he has 2 goals and 3 assists in 14 games for them. They're 2 points outside the Champions League spots, or I think. So, I think that they have, what it takes to kind of make it out of that group, beat Uruguay, could even, surprise, like, Portugal falls out of the group and they make it in over them too. I had a fact here about them too. They have a really good center back partnership. I already talked about Kim Min-jae, who, by the way, was Serie A player of the month for September. I think he scored scored like 2 goals or something like that. But he has his partner, Kim Young-won, who scored the decisive goal against Germany, who knocking them out of the World Cup in 2018. So there's that youth and experience kind of partnership that I think would work out very well for them. They've only allowed 3 goals in 10 matches during the Asian qualifiers. So they're a strong team. I think that it's more than just Heung-min Son, who obviously is so dynamic and can do a lot for them. But I think that can make Portugal and Uruguay's lives very difficult in this group.
Yeah, I think so much of it is resting on Heung-min Son's health. He has the facial fractures. It seems like he's going to be able to play. He's just going to play with a mask. And it's not an injury, like a hamstring or something that's going to kind of limit your athletic ability. It's just going to be about, playing with a mask, and that can just be slightly uncomfortable. But, as far as injuries go, it's at least something that is certainly you can play through it. It's really not going to affect your actual ability. What worries me about South Korea is that they are a perennial qualifier, and that is it. They really have not made much noise in the World Cup. The last time they did was 2002, which is under, I think most people would say maybe suspect circumstances, when they finished 4th in 2002, made it all the way to the semifinals. In fact, 50% of their World Cup wins came from that 2002 run. This has just typically not been a team that has made it out of the group stage, and have disappointed in some ways. It's certainly doable, though. That this group is escapable. I think if you're talking about a team that, I think would be seen as a surprise if they made it out, I think there's a fair and reasonable pick. So if people are maybe looking to bet a little bit, perhaps not the worst choice. I went with Ecuador for 2 reasons. One, this group is escapable. This is a group you can get out of, especially now with the Sadio Mane injury news, knowing that he's not going to be available at all. It was maybe the last group stage game he might have been able to make it back for if they needed him, but now not so. That's not to say Senegal are still not a good team, right? But I mean, you take just a player of that quality out, it certainly evens things up a little bit. Ecuador had a fascinating team. The guy to obviously keep in mind is Moises Caicedo, plays for Brighton. This is a midfielder that I think you're going to be hearing a lot about at this World Cup. You're going to be hearing about this January and this summer, because it's the guy that a lot of top teams are going to be chasing. They're good. They qualify out of CONMEBOL, which is not an easy process to make it out of, and they did that relatively comfortably. They've been a good team. The last, they've had some success in the World Cup. I can remember them 2006 making it out of the group stages, and they just narrowly lost to England, I believe it was. This is a team that has those eras of success. I think you can get out of this group. I don't know that people would be saying, looking at this. I think people would be surprised by it, though. I say all this, and I still think it would be a surprise for some people if they make it out ahead of Senegal. I think people just really take them in as a favorite, and I really like this Ecuador team. I think they could. I think they could do some damage here in this World Cup. They open the World Cup too against Qatar. We'll see how that goes. I'll know pretty much immediately whether or not this is a flop or not in terms of picks, which I guess is good in some sense. But yeah, I'm picking Ecuador to be the surprise team to get out of their group.
I can get behind that. I can definitely see that, and because you're talking about Ecuador being the surprise team to get out of the group, the surprising team to not make it out of their group, the one that I have is Senegal, right? I think that this Sadio Mane injury is pretty devastating for them. They have a lot of young forwards on this team, and I think, is it most of their World Cup, their first World Cup, or
they were in 2018. They narrowly missed out on the knockout stages because of the fair play points, because they were tied with everything with Japan, and it just came down to yellow cards, which sucked.
The interesting thing is they're the only African team with a majority of their squad featuring at a high level in club football. They're, like you said earlier, they're such a good team, but who knows, man. I really think there's a lot of questions to be asked of their forwards. How much do they need Mane up front? Edouard Mendy hasn't really had a break playing for club and country, and that that's your goalkeeper. You can't really, have him tired. So it would be very surprising, if they don't make it out, but I can definitely see it happening.
It would be a shock, I think, even with Sadio Mane being out. You look at still the talent within the team, like you mentioned, Edouard Mendy, Ballatore, Koulibaly, Idrissa Gana Gueye, who has taken a step backwards. Ismail Assar, like they still have talent within this team, good players. They won AFCON obviously in the last year, and that'll be a big boost to the entire team. But yeah, I do think again, not that it is all about Mane, but him being out injured, I think is a problem. And they have, they underwhelmed a little bit. I was really high on them in 2018. I really felt like they could have been like something a little special had they made it out of the group and just weren't able to do so. So they have disappointed in some ways on the bigger stage. And yeah, I do think it'd be a surprise though for them to be left out. And I can also see it. I think that's totally realistic. My pick. Man.
I like this. It's spicy.
I'm not guaranteeing this. Right. And that's why I'm saying this is contingent on other things. I do think people are penciling in Brazil to the semifinals or the final. And that makes me nervous because here's the thing, dear listener. At every World Cup, there's chaos. There just is. And at every World Cup, there's a contender that goes out in the group stages. There always is. And a lot of times it's, the previous winner, the World Cup holder, normally doesn't make it out, but every now and again, too, you get these crazy, unexpected. And in 2014, it was the group with Italy, Costa Rica, Uruguay, and guess what? Costa Rica and Uruguay make it out. We have these things happen. We have these topsy-turvy groups. This group is challenging. We talked about it at the very start. It's Brazil, Serbia, Switzerland, and Cameroon. Brazil have had an issue beating European teams going in previous World Cups. They've been knocked out by European teams a lot. They've struggled against them. And Switzerland are a very good team that have beat very good teams in the last few seasons. I'm not saying definitively Brazil is not making it out of the group stage. But if you're asking me for what would be the most shocking, I think people would be very shocked if Brazil, and I think it's realistic. I do not think this group is certainly not a walkthrough for them. All this being said, Brazil have a very strong team. And they have talent everywhere. But we've seen teams that are strong and have talent everywhere fall at the group stage. And I mean, they could have 4 points, and not make it out. They could have 6 points and not make it out. They don't even have to have a terrible time of it to not make it out. I worry that people have really penciled them in far in advance, and I don't know. I have a weird feeling about Brazil at this World Cup. They just have not impressed in their last few. They've fallen at crucial moments. I do worry about their record against European opponents. And, when you have two European teams in your group, that's not ideal. It's not ideal. But I do still think Brazil are a strong team. I don't want to scare people off of them, but I would personally not be putting money on Brazil for anything. That's just my beef. That's my story. I don't know. I don't know if you feel any different, Tom.
Well, I mean, there's obviously some concerns. There's always Neymar's health. Obviously, he wasn't able to play in the 7-1 shelling they got in 2014 because he got injured in his game against Colombia. He always has injury issues. The situation at left back is up for grabs. It's a big question right there.
Are we going to talk about their fullbacks too? I'm just not sold on it. There are weaknesses in this team.
Yeah, that like you said, they struggle against European competition. They haven't faced a team from Europe for 3 years. They don't have no reference point on what it is to play against a European team right now. You know who does? Argentina. They do. You could see they destroyed Italy.
If the things fall right, you could see a Brazil-Argentina semifinal, which would be spectacular. You could also have a Brazil-Argentina final if it goes that way. But yeah, I just the fullbacks really worry me. Again, especially in a group that is going to challenge you attacking wise. Now, no one is going to put out probably a better attack than Brazil at this tournament, right? When you consider just the quality of starters that they have at their disposal, they're bringing like 9 forwards to this World Cup as well. Midfield is pretty solid too. I just like I said, I'm not sold on them as a team. I could be totally wrong on that. This could be my big whiff, but I would not be picking this Brazil team to be going super far in the tournament.
Well, allegedly, there's also speculation about a couple comments like made by Neymar too. It could be a distraction in the locker room based off of who he decided to like kind of publicly back for the recent elections in Brazil. So there could be some distractions in the team, based off of political ideology, and who knows, that could really
I do think one of the only that I'm aware of, Charleston is the only one on that team that I think that I would ironically actually agree with politically. So that's everyone else seems to have similar Neymar principles actually in terms of who they're backing, which is disappointing to say the least.
Fair enough.
So we'll see. Like I said, I just it's a big call, but I'm not totally sold on this Brazil team. I think this group, we can't talk since the draw about how hard this group is, and then also just pencil Brazil into the next stage. You can't do that. I think that's disingenuous analysis to say like, wow, this is the group of death. This is one of the hardest groups that we've had, in recent memory. Like, and then just say, well, Brazil are going through. Like, that's not guaranteed by any stretch of the imagination. So, Brazil to fall at the group stage, I think is more likely than maybe people think. Top scorer, Dom. I'll start because this kind of rolls into like our next segment, but it's a little propaganda. It's a little it's a little scheming. Here's the thing: top scorer at the World Cup is typically a high profile player. It's gone that way a few times. Like Harry Kane got it at 2018 World Cup. Like, it's usually a bigger name that wins this. At least on some level, high profile player. Sometimes too, it's a young or younger breakout star. And importantly, it does not always go either to a team that is winning the World Cup. Like, it's in recent times, it's been like half and half. Sometimes it is like the guy that makes it all the way to the end, and obviously plays the most games, therefore gets a lot more opportunity to score goals. Makes sense, right? It makes a ton of sense. I am picking Darwin Núñez. Maybe that's a wrong choice.
This is a homer pick, dude. Come on.
It's a homer pick. It's also, I will say this, it is a value pick. You can get really good value on Darwin Núñez, who's played well this year, has scored goals, has been a threat, and this Uruguay team is good, and it is a group which I think they can run the score up on a few teams in this group. I know we said it was hard, but I think they could run the tally up on South Korea, Portugal. They could do it. Portugal got slammed in the World Cup last time they were in it. Like, I'm just saying, I really believe in Darwin Núñez. I really believe in this Uruguay team. I can't wait to see how it disappoints me, because it'll disappoint me on so many levels. I think it's a good value play. It is frequently not like one of the top 3 guys. Like, there's a little bit of a crapshoot to it. There just always is. There's some randomness here. I think he's had good underlying numbers. I think he's a good goal threat. I think he's playing within a good team. I think the only downside, he's not on penalties, and penalties can be a nice way to kind of pad the stats a little bit in this knockout fashion. But I'm picking Darwin Núñez, baby. I think that's our top scorer.
Will we see shades of Diego Forlan or Luis Suarez?
Why not both? Why not both?
Okay, so the red card to get your
card against Ghana. That's what I'm talking about, baby.
Oh man. Well, I love how you said that the top scorer isn't always a player from a team that makes it to the final, right? And I think that highlights another, I wouldn't say breakout, but very young star in Kylian Mbappe. I think that he's going to kind of run house in the group stage. It's a very easy group, in my opinion, for France. Denmark isn't a bad team. They're not slouches. I think that, they're obviously the second favorite out of the group, but Denmark, Australia, and Tunisia, compared to the quality of France, regardless of, who they're missing in the midfield, Mbappe will just get into positions and he'll just score. He's so good. So I think that he'll run up most of his goals in the group stages. And then, maybe if they do make it out, if they get to play one more game, I think that Mbappe plays, he's there for big moments. So I see him, kind of pulling like that Diego Forlan in 2010 kind of deal. Like, he's just the guy.
I think the only thing that worries me about France is that, like I said, I don't love the vibes. I don't love everything going on around them. And in the World Cup 2018, and this is something that I think goes against our frame of thinking a lot, but they were not good in the group stages, weren't scoring like a ton of goals. It really wasn't until the knockouts that they really got going. And they're playing, Denmark again, a team that has given them problems in international tournaments and in the Nations League. So it's a challenging, kind of group for them in some ways. I do think it is fair, though. Like, Kylian Mbappe can certainly do the goals, of course, and can be a huge threat. Here are the last Golden Boot winners, by the way, at the World Cup. So you had Harry Kane in Russia 2018 with 6 goals. James Rodriguez in Brazil 2014 with 6 goals. Thomas Muller with 5 goals in South Africa 2010. But there was multiple players tied for 5 goals. So David Villa, Wesley Sneijder, Diego Forlan all had 5 goals as well. I don't know how they did the tiebreaker exactly to give it to Thomas Muller, but Germany 2006 was Miroslav Klose with 5 goals. And it was original Ronaldo in 2002 with 8 goals. So, you look back and, 6-7 goals is likely going to get you the Golden Boot. That's pretty much the aim there. And, a lot of those players didn't end up actually winning, didn't actually winning the World Cup. So it's really just about making it to the quarters or semifinals. So my advice to anyone, we're not like a betting show, but if you're looking to make a bet, if you're looking to do anything like that, pick a team that you think is going to make a quarterfinal or semifinal run, because it does just become a bit of the numbers game. They have to play a good amount of games to actually get the goals. Or again, maybe the Mbappe route, you think that they can dominate the group, throw down on them. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
So, Dom, for this section, I had us each pick 2 teams. One that's a favorite, just out of the favorites, who do we think can win? And then a dark horse, maybe a little long shot. We both picked Argentina. I think we've touched on them already about how we feel about them. I feel good about Argentina coming into this tournament, but obviously, anything can happen at a World Cup. There can be surprises around every corner, but it just feels like Messi has had a really good return to form this season. I think he can be a huge catalyst for them. Lautaro Martinez has been really good for Inter this season so far, and I think is just a fantastic player. You look at the defense now, too. They have solid defenders, Christian Romero, Lisandro Martinez. The midfield has filled out pretty well. I think there's just a lot to like about this team. I really do. I don't know that they're really weak in any area. And again, if Messi is at, he's not going to be obviously at 2014 levels, but I do think he's returned to a really good place of form now,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that can be dangerous. And they're bringing, again, just a lot of good attacking quality. I didn't mention someone like Angel Di Maria, Paulo Dybala. They have talent here. You got Rodrigo De Paul in midfield. An up and coming strong midfielder that can provide a lot of quality there that they've been lacking in recent World Cup cycles. I think it's a really strong team. I don't know if you want to add anything to Argentina.
You forgot to mention Lautaro Martinez.
I mentioned Lautaro Martinez.
Did you?
He's been playing great for Inter this year. He's in great form.
Okay, sorry. I must have
zoned
out.
Lautaro.
I must have zoned out. I was about to say, I'm like, damn. But that only speaks to how, my point was going to be that speaks to how deep the amount of quality players they do bring to the table to this World Cup. I mean, they have such a large portion of their squad selection in their prime ages of their careers. So and the mix of 30 plus the vets kind of they have the right mix. Some are just over 30, some are obviously talismans like Messi, Di Maria has been there forever. So they have a couple young talents. Julian Alvarez could do something special on the biggest stage. So I do really think that it's aside from, the storylines of like wanting to see Messi like win this and just I don't want to get into the GOAT conversation, but Argentina, they've looked very strong, like very strong. They played in the Finalissima, like did this with Italy. Like, I really do think that they're just so good.
They're on a 35-game unbeaten streak. So, they've been probably, just the best international team, over the last few years. And have just been really, really impressive. They win Copa America, they go away to Brazil and win. Like, they've been tested a lot and they've passed the test a lot. I think they're a fantastic team. If you're gonna throw some money on a favorite, I think Argentina is the team to do it. This goes though with my pick for top scorer. I'm laying it on Uruguay, baby, and here's why. For Uruguay, one of the best performing South American teams over the last few World Cup cycles. In fact, 2 out of the 3 they've been the last South American team standing, and it is not a team I think that still, despite that, does not get an adequate amount of love. It's a smaller country, and yet they're still constantly able to produce a lot of top quality talent. And every World Cup cycle, they're qualifying for the World Cup, and they're making out the group stages with regularity, and they're going deep in the World Cup. And I just think this team has a lot to like about it. You have, I think, one of the best midfielders playing right now in Valverde, and that's a huge threat to have. I really believe in Darwin Núñez. I really believe in this team. Yes, there's some older parts of this squad that maybe don't shine the way that they used to. Thinking of Luis Suarez, Diego Godin, right? And we'll see what type of playing time they actually get. But I look at this team and I think this is like the type of team. This is the archetype of the team that can just catch like a little bit of fire and do something dangerous. And they've done that. They've done that in previous World Cups. Obviously, this team isn't those teams, but I just think that there's something about this team that I really, really like and that I really can't wait to watch play. You've still got guys like Jimenez, Araujo, like you've got a great midfield. I think very quietly, Vecino, Bentancur, Valverde. Like I really think this is a team that can catch people by surprise a little bit. They made a coaching change, near the end of the qualifying cycle, and that is like definitely paid dividends for them because they were really looking like they weren't going to be at this World Cup. I just like them. I think this is a good dark horse pick. At least like look at them maybe making it to the quarters or the semis because this is a team that does that with regularity too. They're constantly competitive at the big stage. They constantly find a way to win games, and they have plenty of talent.
I agree with you that Uruguay is a strong team. They're no slouch. Quietly, right? Have such a quality midfield, and that pays dividends. Going far in tournaments. Another team with a very strong midfield that we talked about a little bit of time in the beginning of the show was Belgium. I think that, like you said, Kevin De Bruyne has taken his level of play to such like a new stratosphere compared to, his peers. And I think that'll really help Belgium make a nice run. They finished 3rd in the last World Cup. So they have a point to prove. Like I said, Roberto Martinez kind of just has his faith in these same players all the time. Lukaku, Kevin De Bruyne, Vertonghen, Alderweireld, like all of these guys. 11 players have been involved in more than 60% of Martinez's 76 games as a coach. So it's 11 players. That's a starting lineup. You know what I mean?
I think they've only failed to score out of those 75 games. I think they've only failed to score in 2 of those games. Like this is a Belgian team that puts the goals up. They're a good attacking team.
They have a lot of scoring talent, and when they have such quality wingers and forwards and attacking players, having a player like Kevin De Bruyne just serving them the perfect pass all the time, like. It's really, really fun to watch, and they're definitely a team that can put up a lot of goals. There is, questions you said like about Vertonghen and Alderweireld. They're on the older side, 362 games for club and country together. But I really do think that they can put together a nice run and really become competitive in this World Cup. I think that they have a very complete squad, just because of what some of those big name players can bring to the team. And also their fucking jerseys, their away jerseys. Have you seen these things?
Are we talking about the ones with the flames on the sleeves?
No, the white one. Are you talking about the white one?
I'm talking about their home kit that has like Hot Wheels flames on the sleeves. Not my favorite. I'll say that.
These.
The Belgium away kit is what you're talking about, which is definitely more clean. Yeah, that's better looking. The home kit is tough. It looks like one of those like generic ones you would play in like Winning 11-6, in like 2005 or something. Like it's not my favorite.
It's not.
Yeah,
ew, no, nah, yeah, nah, ew.
Is it enough to make you change your pick?
Not, yeah, no. I picked the singular jersey. This is not gonna make me. Ew, is it on the socks too?
Yeah.
You know what it reminds me of? I actually saw somebody with this on the other day. When we were like kids, remember like some people had it was like a black Scully, but then like the flame, it looks just like
the Foreman Mills, Foreman Mills beanie. Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about. No shade. I mean, where would you want to wear?
Kyle said this is the Guy Fieri button-down kit.
Yes, it really is. Yeah, I think what I like about Belgium is that they still do have like talent. And here's the thing. Here's the thing that I think everyone maybe forgets about international play. Is very rarely is it a team that is like blowing people out of the water. It is very frequently the teams that are able to manage games at 0-0 and 1-0 that win tournaments, because there's just a lot of randomness that you have to cut out. And when you also don't have time to like actually train with the players and drill them the way you can at the club level, right? You kind of have to depend a little bit more on set pieces. You have to depend a little bit more on just like the talent that you have and the intelligence within the players. And Belgium has that. And it doesn't always come down to, I know we're talking a little bit about Alderweireld and Vertonghen being old, but we've seen like old players come to the World Cup and still able to perform at this international level. It's not always about like physicality and speed like it might turn into at the club level, where you can exploit things a little better. So I do think, I do like Belgium as like that outside pick. So I still think, you're on the tail end of this like golden generation, but it is still a top generation with a lot of good players. That midfield is just as good as about anyone else is going to be able to throw out there at this World Cup. And if you're talking about maybe, I think a great comp for them is actually Croatia from 2018, where you kind of have this like standout midfielder surrounded by good talent, and like some of them older, some of them maybe not playing at the highest level, but, and especially too when you add in Thibaut Courtois, who we somehow haven't mentioned, is fantastic. One of the best goalies, if not the best goalkeeper in the world. There's a lot to like here about Belgium. I think things have to go right for them. And at every World Cup, you got to get a little bit lucky, but I do like them as an outside pick. I do think that's a good choice for the people out there.
An interesting thing, I read this on The Athletic. Belgium's physio is like someone to be highlighted within this team because he's been involved with the team for more than a decade. He's in charge of taking care of Lukaku right now. And something, he's the guy that got Witsel fit for the Euros after rupturing his ACL in that January. He's hired by Real Madrid as a consultant. He like looks over their injured players. Like, this guy knows what he's doing and can get this and keep this team healthy for the World Cup. And I think that with that talent, and if they're 100%, they're definitely a good pick to go for a run and win this thing.
Well, I just saw Alexi Lawless's bracket, and he has the U.S. in the semifinal. So shout out. He had Brazil beating Serbia in the final. So shout out to
Brazil beating Serbia.
Yeah.
Mm,
fair enough.
Okay.
Don, before we get into our next section, I want to give a shout out to yet another sponsor, because we're going to be doing some props here that we can sort of pay attention to for the rest of the World Cup. Low stake, but you can. Our World Cup props are brought to you by Pickup. Play Pickup is the fastest and easiest way to place free prop bets on the sports, teams, and players you love. Every prop at playpickup.com is created by a content creator like myself and Dom. To get signed up, all you need is your phone number. Again, this is free. You can rack up prop points on your fan profile and then cash those points in for prizes on the Pickup Marketplace. It's a really cool system they have there. It's not just the stuff that we post. You can go and search through and see tons of other creators that post these fun little prop bets that you can. It's just a fun way, I think, to interact and get some free stuff. So you can go to playpickup.com and start playing the hottest headlines in sports. Dom, some props here for us to go through. Tournament goals. The over-under is set at 163.5. Just for some context, here are the last 3 World Cups, the total number of goals scored. So in Russia in 2018, you had 169 goals scored. In Brazil 2014, you had 171. South Africa 2010, you had 143. So Dom, over under 163.5 for this World Cup.
Over.
We're just no explanation. I like
no, I think that when was that? What year was that again that you said was 143?
That was 2010. So really the last 2 have been 169 to 171, which is probably more indicative of,
I think the game itself has just gotten more attacking oriented, over the last, 5-6 years. So I think that, a lot more teams are scoring a lot of goals. The game is very fast paced. So I could see it going over.
Yeah, I think especially that World Cup was a very defensive one. A lot of teams really in that possession style. That was very in vogue. I think since then we've seen teams kind of adapt to the more styles you might see from a club level team. I think
Vegan press
a little bit. Yeah, pressing has definitely been something that's been introduced a little bit more since then. In both the club and international level. I would go over as well. I think too. Maybe the sneaky part of this is players are in mid-season form as opposed to sort of having those and I think sometimes too that chaos can lead to. It could swing either way here. I'm choosing that it's going to swing to more goals. I think there's also a realm, though, where they're especially managers are a little bit more conservative and are looking to set up shop a little bit. We've seen that more in the Euros where you have the third place spots advancing to the next round in a lot of places, and teams are more likely just to play for the draws and things. I think at the World Cup, though, you might see teams really pushing, and where goal differential can come into play, and only the top 2 make it out. I'm thinking, this goes over, and we see a good, healthy amount of goals at this World Cup. Dom, I love this one. This is from an unnamed sports book, but I like that they have a whole USA prop section, and this was one of my favorite ones. Well, the USA players score twice in any game. Yes is plus 225. No is minus 300.
I'm taking that yes on that bet for sure, dude. For sure. There's 2 teams. Christian Pulisic could definitely just get a brace against, or I think you want to talk about another player that has something to prove. I mean, this is a good US team. They're starting to get a lot of their talent playing overseas in top leagues, and there's some high profile US players in playing for top teams around Europe. So I think that a guy like Christian Pulisic can lead that team, being one of the most highest profile players on the team, and I think that he could definitely put 2. I'm definitely taking this.
You want to know who my sneaky bet is to do this?
Who?
Weston McKennie. I think
know what?
I just got a feeling about this man. He finds himself in the right areas. I don't know. I'm going yes as well.
I like that.
Because this is the only time that I love this country. This is the only time that I unabashedly go crazy for our God bless the US of A. This in the Olympics for 3 events at the Olympics. I'm like, God, this is the best country on earth. Get me. I missed the World Cup so much in 2018, having the U.S. to root for blindly and stupidly. I'm all in. I am all in. Give me that brace. I love this team. I love this country forever and ever.
It would just be beautiful to see 2 Weston McKennie long shot just rockets. one, like, who was it? Gio Van Bronckhorst with
one of
absolute
the goals from 2010 is the Van Bronckhorst screamer from 40 yards out from just one of the most insane angles I've ever seen in my life.
Now it's Weston McKennie's turn. It's just
yeah. I think there's attacking talent within this team, and the group is escapable for the U.S. They can get out of that group. It's not going to be easy. I think they're on more similar grounds than people would like to admit with Iran and Wales. Like those are challenging teams to get past, but I do think that there's enough talent within this team that someone could bag a brace in one of these games. I do think we can do that.
Gareth Bale was doing his scouting for this group by playing in the
I can't
MLS.
believe you brought that man's name up on this podcast. I have to do a whole mental reset now. Total nil-nils in the tournament. Over under is 4.5. You can get that at minus 120 on either side. So it's essentially just a pick 'em here. Now I'll say this. I looked up some statistics. It's hard to find them for just the World Cup. But in general, between 5 and 7% of games finish at 0-0. If you just look at the group stages, because there can't be any 0-0s technically. I mean, I guess there could if they go to penalties, but
that was going to be my question. Like,
I don't know totally how they're calculating that. Because if it's 0-0 at full time, is that counting for your bet? I don't know, but I'll say this: in the amount of games that you get in the group stage, if you take 5 to 7% of that, you would go over this.
Yeah,
you get roughly like 6 games at a 0-0. I'm going over. I think maybe that goes against my tournament goals over bet. Maybe I'm not being totally consistent in my logic, but I just think I think you can get these games where maybe it doesn't pick up the way you want it to. I think there's some groups too where some teams maybe just don't have the incentive or just don't have the attacking talent either to get a lot of goals. So I'm going to go over here. I'm just going to play the numbers, baby.
I'll take the under. Just because you make a great argument with the percentages. And as a math person,
I thought I had you with the math. I thought I had you.
However, I want to take the emotional answer. And I want to say that most of these games, it's a World Cup, man. It's all or nothing. It's for your country. Like, just like you said about your blind love for this country during this time. Like, think about every single one of those players on each one of those teams. Like, they're going to go out hard as hell. They're going to try to score goals. Team that we just talked about, the trends in tactics and everything kind of, favoring a more attacking style of play. I think some goals are going to be scored. I think that it's going to be difficult for, just even like 1-0s, like just 1-0 results. You're going to see a lot of those. I think that definitely I can see less than 4.5.
Fair enough. I like your optimism there. Dom, we could talk all day about every team in this tournament. I just want to talk about a few that we didn't get to. Portugal, obviously coming to this tournament with Ronaldo and some explosive interviews on his way out. Doesn't seem like he'll be a Manchester United player in the winter. Feels like an implosion. Feels like a team that maybe doesn't make it out of the group. Maybe Uruguay and South Korea instead. Maybe Uruguay, Ghana instead. Like,
there's a lot of media drama around them too. They're trying to stir up controversy between like Bruno and Ronaldo, and then between Ronaldo and Cancelo. Like, there's a lot going on.
It is the TLC team. It is just the my 600-pound life. It is the my strange addiction.
Hard Knocks, Portugal.
It's the ugly, but you can't look away type of situation that I think we all secretly enjoy. I don't know what to feel about Portugal, to be honest. I got to say, too, for one of my dark horse picks, even though they're not really a traditional dark horse, but they are kind of on the outskirts on betting. I really like Germany at this World Cup. I think they could surprise a lot of people. I'm not saying anything new by saying Jamal Musiala is someone to look out for, but I think for a lot of people, this is going to be his coming out party on the international stage. So keep your eyes peeled on that. But yeah, I'm so looking forward to the World Cup. It's weird to have it this time of year, and again with the backdrops like we talked about at the top of the show. But I am looking forward to seeing these teams and seeing who comes out the other end of this. And we got we got like a month of it. we got this long layoff from the domestic stuff. I'm looking forward to getting back to that, obviously, but yeah, I am also admittedly very much looking forward to the World Cup. It's finally setting in that it's here and it's real. And I don't know what to expect because you also too have not had the preparation time typically you have for the national teams with the players. Normally they have like a solid 2 weeks, where they're able to train a lot together, get some friendlies in. That time span has been really dramatically shortened. Teams are playing this past weekend, domestically, and then their players are taking a trip, and all of a sudden now we're in Qatar, playing for the World Cup. Like, it's just massively quick turnaround and very unusual. So, Don, anything to say before we get out of here?
Shout out Croatia. I think that they're also another. I didn't get to talk about them, but I think that they're also another dark horse team. But they're in the same group as Belgium, so I kind of had to choose one. But I think that Croatia is a very strong team. It seems like Modric doesn't age. The Milan boy Ante Rebic can really pop off. He's a big game player. He doesn't waste his time in these small games in Serie A. So I think that you could see some good things from them. Aside from that, I know I haven't been streaming a lot, but I want to get back to it. I just have to make sure everything's all good with my computer. So if you have followed me on Twitch, I apologize. I'll get back to it soon.
And that's it, folks. We'll be back next week. We'll be breaking down some opening group stage action. I pray to God Almighty. We were talking about a USA win against Wales. They open up on Monday. Please light a candle, whatever you got to do for that, because I'd really like to see this team make it out of the group. That'd be a lot of fun for me. But I hope you enjoyed the start to the World Cup. I hope whatever national team you're rooting for does well, unless you're Iranian, Welsh, or English. Especially if you're English, I really hope you have a terrible time. Just kidding, not really. But we'll talk to you next week, and we'll be breaking down the World Cup, and we'll see you then.